So Doug Gottlieb is joining me. I was saying this earlier, Doug, about word association game. Is if you do a word association with Brady, Doug Gottlieb now joining me, has his own show, 3 to 6 Eastern, Fox Sports Radio, and then you do a word association game with Arians. It's not that they're not the same guy. You can argue one guy doesn't drink, one guy loves a cocktail, one's precision, one's loose, one's not a big risk taker, one is defined by risk taking. And it's not that they can't win, Doug, but could you make the argument this was never an ideal fit? It's a 9-7 fit, but Big Ben and Arians are built for each other. This is not a great fit.
You mentioned it's like relationships, right? And this is very much like a relationship where opposites do attract. Right? You like the idea of an opposite makes you think, yeah, that'll work. And then when you start living together, you're like, wait a second.
That's right.
That's not my jam. I mean, look, do you know the Yiddish term chutzpah?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. So for people who don't, it means like nerve, gall, if you will. I mean, Bruce Arians had the chutzpah to, twice say that he's might be a little confused by coverage, and it doesn't make any sense. He's missing these throws in games. He's not missing, the deep throws in practice. Now, look, even if that's true, you're going to say that about a guy who's won 6 Super Bowls and been in 9, and I'd be confused line of scrimmage. Look, this is the complete opposite of how he's always played. He's gotten rid of the ball so quick that you couldn't get him off his spot. Super frustrating for defenses forever in New England. He just got rid of it so quick. That's not what Bruce does. And so, yeah, this is one of those opposites attract. I'm sure Brady's sitting there thinking, man, they got all these great, talented players. You got a quarterback guy. We'll figure out a way to work it out, even though we see the world differently. And then you get into it, and you start to understand why the Edelmans, why the Rashae Caldwells, why the Wes Welkers. Those were his main targets, guys that may not have the athletic ability of a Mike Evans, obviously Randy Moss notwithstanding, but they understood to be exactly where they were supposed to be, exactly when they were supposed to be there, and he could read a defense and get rid of it quick and just nickel and dime you down the field. That's what he's done for the last decade, and you're asking an old dog to learn new tricks, and it just doesn't feel like long-term it really ends up in a Super Bowl.
When I was in my career, I don't know why this sticks in my mind. I always wanted a clean ending to my career, like an Elway, Jeter, or Johnny Carson, where I have a great last show, and then I'm done, and I don't want to be doing Winnebago commercials. I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be selling cleaner or duct tape on TV. And it's not a shot at people that have, but I tend to be, Doug, a minimalist in life. I like clean endings. I just do. And I look at Brady and I think to myself, I wish he just would have retired. It would have been just so clean. But I get it. You live in a tunnel. I mean, you're walking, talking commerce. People talk you into it. But I look at it right now and I'm like, wouldn't it have just been better if he just wrapped it up and just said, tip of the cap, I'm going to go run my global business? It feels like there's so many ugly stories every 5 days about Brady.
Yeah, I think the problem is, Peyton couldn't even throw and won his last game, right? And John Elway was not nearly the quarterback he used to be, and he won his last game. And you kind of talk yourself into it. You sit there going like, look, we won with nothing in New England 2 years ago. We were competitive last year with very little. You start to kind of convince yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you get greedy. He wouldn't be Tom Brady if he didn't believe in himself and believe that he had kind of superpowers. And he I'm sure his wife wanted him to retire years ago. And you just fight it because never again in your life are you going to have 10 eyes on you, 52 other guys, depending on you to lead a team to a Super Bowl. And if you win 7, you pass Jordan, and you're the modern day GOAT of all sports, so you get greedy towards it. So yeah, I'm with you. I do wish that you would just drop the mic when he won his last Super Bowl. You drop the mic and say, done. It's good, perfect ending, beat the Rams. But that's not the case. By the way, can we give a little credit to the Rams? Like,
I know
the way in which they demolished Seattle is the way in which they really wreaked havoc on Tampa, which is the same way that the Giants beat Brady's Patriots in the Super Bowl. The ability to get to the quarterback rushing 4 doesn't necessarily confuse them, just makes it a whole very, very different. And what they've kind of rebuilt and reconfigured, changing coordinators, all their coordinators are under 40 years old. I mean, really, they've done a great job with the Rams rebuilding themselves, and they're a team that doesn't have to blitz, and they still get to the quarterback.
Yeah. No, the other thing is, and I have Les Snead on later, they have done such a good job drafting wide receivers and secondary. Their secondary, Doug, Jalen Ramsey is such a big corner. Well, God, when you're in a division with DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf, and by the way, Deebo Samuel, you can just put him on that island and just say, take him out. And it's maybe, they didn't know they were going to, when they got Jalen Ramsey, they didn't know Seattle would draft DK Metcalf. But God, they have just, you got to give credit. Some teams draft well, some teams don't. The Saints draft incredibly well. Les Snead, receivers, DBs, he's hit it out of the park. He's just
they've done a really good job. And if there was a weakness to that defense, it was in the linebacking core. And guess what? You don't use your linebackers nearly as much as you used to, right? With many of these teams. So if you can have a weakness, sometimes that's something you can cover up. Look, they made a ballsy trade to go and get Jalen Ramsey, who was a pain and wanted to get paid. And you know what? It worked out. And, last year they had some holes in the offensive line and replaced it with youth. That's come together. They fixed Jared Goff. You go back a couple weeks ago, Jared Goff was bad against little double-A gap blitz, and he got better as well. So they've coached him up. They've drafted well. They made some huge swings as far as trades. And, by the way, let's be honest. The running backs are a lot better. They got rid of Todd Gurley, who was a malcontent, who there was questions about his work ethic. And they got guys back there that run hard and get that extra yard. The whole thing seems to be coming together, and it's not crazy to think the Rams could get back to the Super Bowl after a year in which they're 9-7 last year and seen as a disappointment.
Yeah, no, I watched them the other night, and I'm like, I'm not sure they have a big hole. Like everybody else outside of this, the Saints don't throw the deep ball, and the Steelers don't run the ball, but Rams, almost everybody in this league, Green Bay's a good team. They can't play physical football. Colts are a good team. Low ceiling. Titans are a good team. Seattle, you struggle with the back end of the defense. Doug Gottlieb joining us. I want to spend a few minutes on this. We got about 3 minutes left. I want to spend it on this. A year ago, at least I did, I thought, Lakers, I don't know, Clippers, I really like their direction. Then Montrezl Harrell, Landry Shamet are gone, bench isn't as good, new coach, chemistry issues, and here you have the Lakers, all these guys taking pay cuts. Anthony Davis may take one eventually to get Giannis. One of the Morris twins going to take less. I'm starting to watch all these guys coming to the Lakers take less. And literally what a difference a championship makes. I really feel like, Doug, this morning the Lakers are back on top, and they've kind of separated from the Clippers. Are you on the same page?
Yes and no. Like, I think we got to be really careful of cementing who we think the Clippers are. You and I discussed this a little bit on air and a lot off air. Everyone who was in the bubble told me, Clippers do not want to be here. It is not a good vibe.
You told me that, yeah.
Right. I mean, the Lou Williams thing was just a microcosm of the macro which was going on there. So I do think that the Clippers are better than they looked, and they're trying to reconfigure their chemistry. I still believe they need a point guard, and they don't have one. I don't think you can win a championship with Pat Bev as your starting point. But whatever. The Clippers are kind of let's just see what the painting looks like when the artist is finished. But for the Lakers, I mean, look, what was the big thing when Magic was there? That anytime they were thinking about doing something, there was always a story from Brad Turner that covered the team or there was always a leak. It's not just that they pulled off these moves, it's that there have been no leaks, right? You haven't seen it coming. And I think Rob Pelinka has smartly kind of adjusted and metamorphosized himself into a really, really good GM.
Yeah.
And you get these older players like a Marc Gasol. Look, as long as I think he'll love his role and understand his role. The question is, those older players, do they break down? I love the upgrade with Dennis Schroeder. Now, we don't know how he'll play in a big playoff series. You still wonder how they'll replace the shoot. Danny Green looked washed up, and they got rid of that contract, which was smart. But can they replace that shooting? But otherwise, I think they've done a really, really good job. It's going to be different outside of the bubble, but the big thing was that Lakers team was really tight. had really good culture, and I do think that veterans around the league, they respect that. They like that. They're willing to take a little less money to play for a professional organization that's run the right way and is only about winning. And that's what LeBron, Pelinka, the coaching staff has all put together.
You know, the other thing, Doug, is once you win a championship, LeBron and AD now, everybody's going to fall in line. I mean, nobody's going to come in there and disrupt, because AD now is a made man.
Yes.
And so it's like, man, that championship, that builds a wall around AD and LeBron. And I think Joy and I talked about this. Like, those guys seem to hit it off faster than D. Wade and LeBron did. Like, 5 games in, you're like, oh, this is perfect.
Well, because, LeBron and Dwayne Wade had been kind of superstars, and both had won champion. Well, I mean, Dwayne Wade had won a championship on his own, whereas Anthony Davis, I think he knew, like, he was topping out in New Orleans. He knew he needed LeBron, and LeBron knew he needed him, right? Whereas previously they both seen a way to succeed, Wade and LeBron, without each other. So I think therein lies the difference. But a big portion of it, LeBron was willing to sacrifice his ego, understand where his body is, and really, like, he's AD's basically his consigliere, right? LeBron knows what he wants, pumps up Anthony Davis, and then Anthony Davis leads the rest of the team, whereas LeBron just kind of works through Anthony Davis, and that's the way it works.